Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
So welcome to the print soft cover. We have with us author Pooja Changoiwala, who has recently written a very, very interesting book with the name Gangster on the Run. And it is one book that that is hard to keep down once you start reading it, because it is so easy to read, and it is so interesting that it gets you hooked. So in fact, I would like to admit that when I started reading the book, I even missed 2 meals because I didn't want to keep it down. Welcome to the print, Pooja. Today, we are here to discuss your book that you have recently written, and I'll have some questions on the book. How did you get the idea on your entire research, which seems quite thorough in the book. So we'll be unveiling the book. I have it here with me. It's in a beautiful blue packet. So I'll just open the book.
Thank you, Ananya. Thank you.
So here it is. Though I read it on the PDF, but it feels so good taking it in my hand.
Wait, let me also.
Right.
Yay.
Cover as well, yeah.
Yes.
Great. And it reads even better. So this is a book. It's called Gangster on the Run: The True Story of a Reformed Criminal. And this book has been published by HarperCollins. And now we have the author with us. So Pooja, without wasting any more time, you have been writing on crime. You are an award-winning journalist. You have worked for or written for various publications, including the BBC, the Hindu, and you've been following your work. Which character in this book caught your attention, which you thought has to be now turned into a book? Like when we started reading, it is one character called Rahul. So how did Rahul catch your attention?
Firstly, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you and the print. And I think I met Rahul for a long form story that I was doing for an American publication. And we were sitting by the promenade at Marine Drive, and we got talking, and we were sitting for about 5-6 hours. And I knew he has a book in his belly, because this is a story, it has something for everybody in it. I mean, it's a story of hope, it's a story of survival, it's a story of second chances, and for a man who has been a gun runner, a hitman, an extortionist, a sharpshooter, an alcoholic, and the way he has turned his life around, I think it's rare, it's courageous, you don't hear of it. And I mean, all great people, I mean, I think all of us are dreamers inherently, and it was Rahul who caught my eye, because to be able to dream in that circumstance and to make that happen, I think it's phenomenal. And Rahul is the center of this book.
Reported a lot on Bombay's underworld and how it works, and because there are very interesting bits about how underworld actually works like a family, wherein the Don, which is like the top of the leadership, is trying to encourage the on-ground workers who are actually going, like this man Rahul, who's a hitman. So he's just taking orders from his boss, and he gets that thrill when his boss tells him, "Beta, bahut acha kaam kiya. Beta, very good." And Rahul thinks that he'll be taken care of, and this is entire sort of family-like conversation between the Don and his overground workers. Have you worked a lot with the police also, and you must have researched a lot on this, how these relationships are built in the underworld to actually come out with such intricate details of that?
So I've spoken, actually, it was the underworld was mainly reigning in the late 90s and all, when I was a child, but I have done a lot of research because I had to create that time. I had to create the time from the 80s, right from Kareem Lala to Dawood to this, era of white collar crime. So I did a lot of research. I spoke to a lot of encounter specialists, and who helped me recreate this era. And I think as far as the glamour is concerned, I think it is the glamour, that drives these boys towards the underworld. And Dons, on their part, they also make sure that these kids are hooked. So they'll adore them. I mean, they'll help them, they'll praise them, because usually these boys have low self-esteem. So they praise them, so they feel wanted. They shower them with love, the whole idea, they're called bhais because it has to be a brotherhood, so that these people have a sense of belonging. And the last thing is money, so that they can afford their vices, like women, alcohol, to each his own. And Rahul had a lot of vices, so I think for him it was the perfect outlet to get rich fast.
So I think Rahul, what sets him apart from his counterparts or people, probably, so many of them, working with the underworld. I think what sets Rahul apart from me is the fact that he's a very well-read person. He watches American Gangster, he listens to music, and he plays cricket, all of that. So why did you pick Rahul? Why was he the most interesting character when you saw, then there's a pool of characters in the underworld that you could have written a book on?
First of all, he comes from a very unlikely background. If you meet his parents, they're so sweet, and I mean, you wouldn't imagine that that a gangster can come from a family like that. And second thing, which was most interesting about him, was that he was a tech literate gangster. He ran his extortion ring over Skype. When he made calls via VoIP, which is voice over internet protocol. And he got all those numbers where when you call your victim, it doesn't show a real number. It shows a number from the UK or Monaco or a private number, something like that. So he was using the internet, which had just come at the time, which had just arrived in India at the time. And he was using the internet to get intelligence on his prospective victims. So that at the time, there used to be a very complex web of khabris that you had to navigate, in order to zero in on the information about a prospective victim, especially if he's rich and famous. And Rahul did that with a lot of ease through the internet. So he was a tech literate gangster, which I think was really appealing, to me, as well as I think his Don. That is why he could climb up the hierarchy so swiftly. And there was nothing to stop him. He had been a wanted man for about 7 years when he was picked up.
So, Pooja, that brings me to the next question, that about this Rahul starting to use voice over internet protocol, which we call VoIP, which is very often now used in cybercrime and other cases of terrorism whenever there's a communication that has to happen, a secured communication that has to happen. So was Rahul the first gangster to be using these technologies, whether it is VoIP or, going to the internet and actually getting the entire contact list of the film guild and, other builders and everything? Because it seemed in the book that before that, the underworld was using very primitive ways to actually narrow down on their targets, doing recce's and then, spending months, which is why Rahul's boss was so elated when, he got him the number, the list of numbers that could have usually taken over a year to find. So Rahul gets them in just 2-3 days. So was he the first one who started using internet for choosing their targets in the underworld?
I cannot tell about the whole of Underworld, but it was the first for his gang also. And his gang was pretty big in the Underworld at the time. So, it was the first for his gang for sure. And the internet was just 5 years old at the time, I think. So it was relatively new. So you could say, but as a journalist, I do not want to make as a journalist first, I refrain from making generalizations. So it was a first for his gang for sure, but I'm not sure about all of the underworld. There are some cops like who I spoke to for this book, and they also pointed that thing out that, yes, he was using the internet, which was pretty new to us at the time. But again, no one said that it was a first in the underworld. But yeah, I think he would have been one of the first for sure.
And since he's such an interesting character, like I could also find, really some similarities between him and me, because he would read 5 newspapers in the morning, and so do we, because as journalists, we are supposed to keep track of who's doing what in all newspapers. He reads like 5 newspapers a day, and then he keeps track of the television news and everything in the morning, and then he sets out to begin his day. So one very interesting point in the book was how he stumbled upon the Film Guilds of India website, and then he thought that why not target the producers, the directors, the actors. So again, was it the first time that the Bollywood or film industry came on the target of the underworld after he stumbled upon that website?
The Bollywood was being threatened all the time. I think there were a lot of murders around the turn of the century. But there was firing at Mahesh Bhatt's office, which of course was perpetrated by his boss. But then Bollywood had been a victim for as far as we can remember, as far as organized crime has been. Bollywood has been. I mean, I wouldn't give him the credit, but I can say that he did terrorize, and he was very thorough with his research. For instance, now that he knows that Ananya Bhardwaj is interviewing me, I'm sure he's looked you up thoroughly. He knows everything about you. He's looked you up. So he's pretty thorough with his research, and he continues to be. Yeah, he uses that now for different things, but yeah.
Okay. So Pooja, although you have used a lot of names of producers, directors, and filmmakers who are being the target, there are a lot of instances where you have not taken names. Was there a specific reason for that?
Yeah, I mean, it's those cases are not officially registered, and there's no point in attracting attention to something which is not in the public domain. Plus, I do not have proof to back it up. So I cannot write something basis of just hearsay, right? I mean, if Rahul tells me he's threatened a Karan Johar, I cannot write that because there is no proof to substantiate it. So I had to be pretty careful. I had to write things that I was sure about. Like I told you, I'm a journalist first. So, verification, it is a good thing, but it often comes in the way of my creativity. But I think it's better if we stick to the facts, especially when you're writing narrative nonfiction. I think, yeah.
So as I said, Pooja, it shows that how the book is so well researched. So what were the challenges really that you faced from the time that you thought of writing this book and the time that you finished the book, finished your last sentence of the book? So what were the kind of challenges that you faced? Because as a journalist, I know how difficult it is to dig out information, old records. People are not ready to talk, especially in sensitive matters like these. So what were the challenges of sorts that you faced? If you could tell our viewers something about that.
First was convincing Rahul to talk, because Rahul was not willing to talk to me. He did not want to bear all. I mean, I think he had some sort of a hesitance, because at that time when I met him in 2015-16, the society still hadn't accepted him back. I met him in 2017-18. The society hadn't accepted him, and he still had that hesitance about his past, and he didn't want to talk about it. So it took a lot of convincing there. Once he was convinced, I had to find the documents, which are now 2 decades old. So, hunting down officers from the time. Some are in office, some have moved on, some don't remember. So that was a major hurdle. Then again, his parents, his friends, his former gang mates. So if you notice, a lot of those people have not been named in the book because they wanted that. They do not want to identify with that part of Rahul. Of course, today they can say that, they're his friend and they're his parents, but they do not want to associate with that part. They've sort of blocked that out, and they do not want to say it on record. So, of course, like you might know, I mean, the most difficult of sources can be cracked if we build a relationship. And that's what happened. I think we met a lot of times, spoke a lot of times, and they did give in after they could, have faith in me. So
how much time did it actually take for you to break the ice?
Oh, with Rahul's parents, I think thrice, 4 times I went. I spoke a lot of Marathi, a lot of broken Marathi. And I think they saw that I was trying really hard. So I think they gave in. His mother was a little hesitant till the end, but his father would talk. His father is a very sweet man. I mean, he would come down, like walk down 2 floors to drop me and all. And the man is 85. He's really nice.
Yes, we have read a lot about Rahul's father and his mother. In fact, how they stood beside him till the last. He was breaking down, time and again, and how Rahul was going back to alcohol, how Rahul was going back to drug abuse, and even then the parents stood beside him. So, what was the experience like speaking to the parents? Because for them also to recall this entire thing about how he went to the underworld, what happened with him, and how he was dragged to the police station each time in front of them. How difficult was it?
Because his company, they're always saying buri sangat ka asar hai. And even now, when I was talking to them and when they reminisce, when they think of those times, it's difficult, I mean, you can tell from the body language, their eyes turn to the floor. uh, Kuch ठहराव है when they speak, they speak with pauses. But they're as happy when they talk about his today, his contemporary state. I mean, they're very proud of him. I think it's surreal for them. It's almost surreal for them when he got married. He got married at 44, and they were over the moon. So yeah, I mean, I think it still breaks their heart thinking about it, but I think Rahul is making up for it, and hopefully he stays on the path.
So, Pooja, do you really think that what also sets Rahul apart is the kind of how he's so emotional? Because from what I was reading, he fell in love, and then he was in love with that one girl throughout the book. So till he got married in the end, and how difficult it was for him to let go of her memories. So he's this person who's also very emotional, and at the same time, he's this person when he hits somebody, he's very dispassionate about it. Do you think that that's like a prerequisite for turning into a gangster or taking up to the underworld or organized crime?
Yeah, I mean, I think comfort with blood is the first requisite, right? I mean, you have to be comfortable with blood, and I think Rahul took pride in the fact that he was comfortable with blood. For example, if you see the first time he encounters a person a person lying bloodied on the floor, some of his friends assault him. So he is not affected. I mean, in fact, he's improvising on the whole action sequence in his head, that they should have kicked his belly instead of, they should have doled out this curse, or they should have, he was improvising on the whole scene. And instead, and that's the day he realized that that he's dispassionate, and that if he ever becomes a gangster, he'll be good at it. And I think he carried that till the end. He was always proud of it, even after being acquitted in his cases. That gangster bit in him hadn't died. He wanted to continue, but then the Don was missing, so he couldn't. But he was still keen. I mean, it was circumstances which wouldn't allow him. Otherwise, I think this book wouldn't happen. He wouldn't have changed and turned his life around. I think he would have been the same. He would have been the same gangster, that egotist.
So another question that comes to my mind which came to my mind, in fact, when I was reading the book, was that how this police narrative of an incident differs from what actually happens, and this we have also seen on the ground while reporting on many crime incidents, that the story that we see in the newspapers the next day is actually not the real story. So a lot of times the facts are twisted, facts are manipulated. So when Rahul is telling you something about some episode, and then you go and check the records and it's completely something else, how do you deal with that?
You don't write it, or you write the official version. I have the charge sheets, I have the judgment copies, I have the statements of concerned officials. So I have had the chance to it was a lot of work, but then I had the chance to cross-check. I spoke to a couple of officers who were there in office at the time, and there were certain things which were verified, and there were not a lot of discrepancies, but then things that I couldn't get verification on, I left them out, because, you are talking about real people, and you do not want to hurt anybody, even if it's the Don, right, with something which is not factual. So I was pretty, there's a writer who said, kill your darlings. I've killed a lot of my darlings. I mean, the book is a graveyard of the darlings that I killed. So yeah, I had to leave a lot of stuff out, but I think it's we've managed to cull up a decent story with quite a few elements covered, I think.
Yeah, quite a lot of elements, in fact, covered. So another very important thing, which I think, a takeaway of sorts from the book for me, was the criminal reform system and how it lacks in India. Because we have seen so many cases wherein even a person who has left the business of crime and wants to return to the mainstream, to normal life, there are so many things that stops him, but still, he makes an attempt to leave all that behind and join the mainstream. But the police and the society just keeps dragging him back, because in Rahul's case also we saw that even when he was not indulged in crime, or even he was not an active criminal at that point, each and every time the police would come and pick him up and take him to the police station from his house, in fact even from the place that he started working at. So what do you have to say about this criminal reform system in our country, since you have researched so much on the book and you've been writing on crime?
No, I think, I think abroad you have reform systems, you have follow-up systems, but you don't have those in India. In India, you have summons. And once a criminal, you're always a criminal. So that's why Rahul's story is so rare, according to cops also. And I mean, I think one of the major factors that discouraged his reform was the fact that he was being called to police stations twice a month. I mean, cops from all over the city were calling him, from Mumbai, Thane. Some were, for example, there was a double murder in Andheri, and that was perpetrated by his don. So although he didn't have any connection with the murders, he was called in, and they used to keep calling him. They came to his house, they manhandled his father. So that's because they wanted intelligence on the don, or they wanted intelligence as to who could have likely done it. So I think there's a lot of that which happens, but that's because the system is lacking, as you said. Had there been now it's at the discretion of individual cops. So, for example, while there were these cops, there was one who felicitated Rahul after he started running and he had participated in a couple of marathons. He felicitated Rahul and he told his colleagues that nobody will bother him now on. So I think there are black sheep and there are white knights in the Mumbai police force as well. And the black sheep get to be black sheep because there is no system, right?
So for our viewers, Rahul's story is also very interesting and in fact very encouraging, because he is the one who gets into drug abuse and he turns into an alcoholic, goes to the de-addiction centers at least 5 to 6 times, comes back again, falls for the bottle, and then takes up the bottle, starts drinking again. So that was like a continuous fight with his own self, but still he emerged victorious towards the end, and he took up to running. Pooja has described it beautifully, that how by running, he felt liberated, and that's why he took to it and he started running marathons. And the latest one was from Mumbai's Gateway of India to Delhi's India Gate, which is incredible. So Pooja, if you could just tell us something about that. When you were talking to Rahul about this journey from being a criminal, then an alcoholic, to a marathon runner.
When you about his running, I think when you talk to him, you can see how passionate he is. He says the real running starts after 49 kilometers. When he steps onto that 50th one, he cannot feel his body. He cannot feel his bones. His calves are burning. He cannot feel them. He cannot feel what's around them. It's just him, and he's moving, he's drifting in time and space with no awareness of anything around him. And it's just his mind which is working. So I think he enters into a state of nirvana, and that's why he's a long distance runner. And I think running is the reason why he has been able to reform, because I think firstly it killed the fear of new beginnings. As a gangster, when you're starting out, when you're trying to reintegrate into society, there is not much acceptance. So there is always a fear. Will they accept me back? Should I do this? Is it even worth it? But yeah, then there was a kind of discipline that running brought into his life. He was drinking a bottle of whiskey every day, but he was waking up in gutters. He was sleeping on footpaths. But when running came into his life, he had a schedule. He had to eat right. He had to wake up at a certain time, practice his runs, do his workout, everything. So it brought a lot of discipline, which also added to his self-esteem. So I think running has been a major turning point. It's the only reason, I would say, why he has been able to transform his life. And the Bombay-Delhi run, I think it was phenomenal. It was a 1,500 kilometer run. And the irony is that the day he was beginning the run, his don was arrested in Senegal. So, and he got the news just before he started his run. And he was a little shaken, and he prayed, that he surrenders, because that guy was evading arrest. So he was like, just surrender, enough of the run. And that's how he began his run. And everybody was a little skeptical, but I think he proved us wrong. He finished those 1,500 kilometers. And he had a grand celebration in Delhi. There was a lot of press to greet him. And the last time he had so much press, he was under a black veil. He was under arrest. So that was a big moment for him, yes.
So Pooja, what was the turning point for Rahul? Because in the book, whenever he falls, we think now is the turning point. Then he falls again. now is the turning point. Then he falls again. So what was the turning point really for him? Because till the end, he was waiting for his Dawn's phone call.
Yeah. So the turning point is in the epilogue, I'm sorry. The turning point is that run from Bombay to Lonavala. And after he falls on that grass and he starts weeping, that's the first time he's cried, I think, in 2 decades. That's his turning point. After that, he's decided that, he cooperates in his sessions at Muktangan, at the rehab, you must have read. And yeah, that was about it, because that's the moment he realized that he's guilty. Till then, he was just fighting everybody. He was fighting the world, he was fighting the cops, he was fighting the judiciary, he was fighting his own demons. But I think during that run, he takes complete responsibility. He weeps, he accepts that he's been in the wrong, and he decides to move on.
So Pooja, since you have spoken to him in such great detail, one thing that comes to my mind when I read about this book, and would come to anyone's mind when they read it, was it this abandonment by the Dawn that actually made him feel that this place is not for me?
I think he felt cheated because he genuinely loved his Dawn. And I think his Dawn also, the way he describes it, I think his Dawn let him go, because he was already in a lot of trouble. We do not associate humanity with the underworld, but I think among them, there is a lot of camaraderie, there's a lot of love. And I always say this, it doesn't take a lack of emotions to kill a man. It takes emotions, it takes a lot to kill a man. And I think gangsters do it out of love for their Dawns, for their word, for their beliefs. So I think, in a way, I think the Dawn did abandon him. But now that I think of it, I think it was also because he was letting him go, because he was really in a big soup. Rahul, as you must have read, he could not recollect his, he could not tell the time. He could not read the date in newspapers. There was a time when he went to his bar and he returned and he was only in a vest and an underwear. And he realized that he's not wearing any clothes only when his mother pointed it out to him. So the Dawn knew everything through the lawyer. And I think he let him go. And if not that, it was just, yes, of course, it was abandonment. And Rahul feels betrayed even today, I think. He's never said it to me. I think he feels betrayed. But I think the Dawn also let him go because he knew, or maybe because he let him go because he thought he was useless. This guy is such a drug addict. He's such an alcoholic. What good is he? So maybe it was that. But yeah, he did let him go.
Because in the crime world, usually, even if a person, as important as Rahul, who was a sort of right hand to the Dawn and was the lead hitman, he had his own team. For him to distance himself from the gang, from the crime, knowing so many secrets also is a very difficult task. So do you think, as you said, that the Dawn let him go because he turned into a drug addict, but why did he take up to alcohol and drugs? Because he felt betrayed since he was not, because even after his arrest, the Dawn did not call him, and he knew that if your Dawn likes you, then he will take care of you.
Oh, Ananya, if you've noticed, he's been drinking even before the shootouts. In fact, I think the shootouts were made easy because of the alcohol. So he's always been alcoholic. And if you've read, the Dawn would tell him about giving up on alcohol. Like he used to tell him, Scotch peeling. Yeah. Don't drink that desi liquor, don't drink liquor. Exercise, he used to tell. And Rahul never heeded that advice. He was brazen. He was not eating. He was drinking too much. Like a bottle of whiskey a day is a lot. So I think he noticed those mannerisms. And plus, the Dawn himself was in a bit of a soup because he had gotten pretty active at the time. And a lot of his men from Dombivli, Mumbai, all these satellite towns and Mumbai, they were behind bars. So it was really this thing. It was really a soup for him, who to pick, who to get out, who not to get out. It was a lot of money. And plus, he could not trust anybody with the money. So I think all of those things came together and it built the story that is currently.
Is Rahul still searching for answers? Does he miss that adrenaline rush when he used to go to somebody, point a gun at the person's temple and then threaten?
I think he still has a lot of moving on to do because I remember I was talking to him about, he tried to read my first book after we decided to do this one. And even that has a lot of underworld, a lot of crime, a lot of, gore basically. And he couldn't read it. And similarly, he cannot watch gangster films still. Like he cannot watch Satya, although his name was Bhiku, he cannot watch a Satya right now. So I think there is still a part of him that gets affected, and there is a lot of moving on to do. And I really hope and pray that he does it. I mean, that he moves on completely, where he's completely liberated from his past.
Another very interesting thing in the book was that initially when he was a child, so he's talking to his father, he's always fighting with himself, with his mother, saying that my father is an honest man, but he doesn't earn enough money. Yes, he's honest, he's done everything right in life, then why don't we have all the luxuries in life like other people do? And then he goes on full circle, earns a lot of money, loses all his money, and then he works in the same company in the same razor factory that his father had worked. So tell us something about what he was like. What did he feel like when he was telling you this, narrating this entire episode? Because he started from one point, went to full circle, and then came to that same point again.
Oh, he still talks. He has still has a little bit of that gangster in him. So he says, "क्या बोलेगा मैडम, पूरा जिंदगी बाप से भागा, फिर से बाप का ही life जी रहा है." So he talks like that. It is a little informal, but yes. So yeah, I mean, he was surprised when life did come full circle, and I think he grew more respect for his father because he knew that job was very slow. I mean, and that job it paid what 6,000 rupees, and it takes a lot, to be doing that. I mean, we are born in privilege. We do not really realize that, and I think even Rahul was born in privilege as compared to his father. And when he saw the kind of life his father had lived to give him the life he has, I think he did have more respect for his old man.
So what is Rahul doing now? Is he working? Is he running? What is he doing now? And what are the plans?
He is running twice a day, in the morning and in the evenings. His phone is off at the time and he's just running. And then later during the day, he works as a de-addiction counselor at the same rehab where, he recovered. And he's been married. And ironically, his brother-in-law is a police officer. So there was a lot of cross-questioning. But yeah, he's past that. And now I think he is in a pretty happy place. He lives with his wife and does his job. Yes, that's about it.
So where does he see himself 5 years down the line? What if Dawn, gives him a call back someday in the future? Have you discussed that with him?
There's no going back. There's no turning back. That is for sure. Because so he was always a dreamer. If you've noticed, since he was a child, he wanted his story to outlive him. And I think he's tried the wrong way. Now he's on the right path, and he sees that this path is better. I mean, his story can outlive him if he stays on this path. So I think, as a dreamer, as an ambitious man, I think he's on track, and he wants to break the national stadium run record one day. So he's training right now, and he just wants to spread the message of de-addiction. So I think that's what he'll be doing for the rest of his life.
Another very interesting bit in the book was how he fought his own cases and how brilliantly he took up law books and because he didn't have a representative, and how he read, in fact, helped other prisoners also file their bail applications. So is he still reading law books? Is he still interested in
No, he's not. He's not reading law books anymore. But he could do it because he was an avid reader since he was a child. So that's how. And plus, he met a very interesting person in prison. I mean, there was this person who was accused in the 7/11 blast in Mumbai, and that was the person who guided him through his law education, who helped him find the. Yeah. So. I think he had a mentor, which he found very interesting, which he found, so I think he wanted to be led, and he was led, and he was quite successful in arguing for himself, especially in an in a case under MCOCA, which is very stringent, the Maharashtra Control of Organized Crime Act, which is very stringent, and he was able to get himself bail in that, which was a big milestone, I think, and a big ego boost. The first and only, the first ego boost for him in prison while behind bars. So yeah, I mean, I think he did a good, and there is this whole monologue also in the book where he's arguing for his bail. I think that was interesting. Yeah.
So how difficult was it for him to open up and tell you about all his cases, about, you know, the shootouts, knowing the fact that he was acquitted in those cases, and, you know, it could probably land him into trouble?
Slowly and steadily. He did not. अच्छा फिर वो भी हुआ था. फिर अच्छा भी हुआ था. अच्छा ये है ये बोलूं क्या लेकिन. So he was a little hesitant. There was a lot of hesitance, but yeah, like I said, I must have met Rahul 40, 50 times, I think, and we've had long conversations. And yeah, I mean, that's how made him open up. And plus, it cannot lead to trouble because he is acquitted, right? So I mean, there is no challenge on the case.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and I think he's safe. That's how he can. And plus, there are cops who are backing him up. Like there's this senior officer in the Mumbai crime branch called Mr. Vinayak Vats, who actually got him a bottle of juice and a rose and said, "You're doing pretty well, and you don't worry, nobody's going to harass you again, not from the Mumbai police." And nobody has. Since 2016, he has had no summons. Nobody has come.
It's lucky to have that police officer. As we were talking about the criminal reform system, still so many people who are not, in crime anymore, are not active criminals, are being hounded by cops on a daily basis. And he was lucky to find that, police officer told him that nobody is going to bother him now. Because I remember in the book, you have also written, one cop also says कि criminal है तो हमेशा ही criminal रहेगा.
There's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of stigma attached to that, and I think it's basic, right? Like we tend to judge people by their past more than their present or their plans for the future, right? I mean, that's what they have to show for themselves. And with the criminal justice system, the thing is, especially with those in organized crime, I think because these dons are so far-fetched, they need to get hold of the foot soldiers, and Rahul was a major foot soldier. He was a right hand of the Don. So I think he had to be harassed that way. And because he knew a lot to be left alone. And it was surprising that he was acquitted or that he was on bail. So the cops had to be extra cautious with him. So, I mean, actually, to be honest, I have worked with the Mumbai police very closely and for many years. And I really admire them, some of the cops especially. But I do think Rahul was harassed, but I think eventually they did, make up for it. I think now for the past 2-3 years, they've left him alone and he has had no harassment. I think that, doing it is wrong, but knowing when to stop is also important, and they did stop.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So coming back to you, Pooja, the author of the book, what was your experience collecting information, researching, talking to Rahul, his parents, his family? Was it overwhelming in some places? And, did you lose sleep over it? And how much time did it take you to actually collect all the information and put it together in such a beautifully written book?
I think 1.5 years. 1.5 years, all of it. And I started writing. I think the research part is okay. The writing is hard. Writing is very hard. And if it's not hard, you're not doing it right. So the writing took a lot of time, but I think about 2 years. It took about 2 years. Yeah.
Oh, so that's a long time. Is Rahul happy about the book being out? What was his reaction? Has he read it yet?
He is over the moon. Yes, he's read it, and he's over the moon. Yes. If you'd like to speak to him, I can arrange that.
Definitely would love to. In fact, since I have read it in 2 days, it occupied a lot of my mind space. I've been thinking about it. So definitely would love to speak.
Thank you so much, Ananya, for reading. You're one of the first readers.
Thank you so much, Pooja, for sharing the book with us. In fact, joining us today at the print to launch this book once again. The book is called Gangster on the Run, the true story of a reformed criminal. It centers around Rahul, who's a very, very interesting character, how he became a hitman, and then how he went around shooting people, then reformed into a marathon runner. So it's a very, very, very interesting, gripping book. Once you pick it up, you will not leave it, and you finish it and then get off your couch. So please take a look. Please have a copy of the book, which is published by HarperCollins. And thank you so much, Pooja, for joining us. For more information on the book and some excerpts, you can log on to the print website and take a look till you get a copy of your own. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ananya. Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you and a pleasure being with the print.
Thank you.